Hi guys, my name is Star, and yes, I did put a misleading beginning of the video on purpose to make you guys think it was a shit post at first or a clickbait. So I got you. Got you. But anyway, today I want to talk about what I found out today. And what I found out today is self-harm has recently become a recognized mental illness. And I want to talk about my feelings on this. And I just want to say how overwhelmingly happy I feel about it. Self-harm has been, it hasn't been documented very well in history. It wasn't really documented up until the early 2000s is when it started becoming more common for people to self-injure. Back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, it was 1 out of every 200 people that self-harmed. But by the time the 2010s came, it was 1 out of every 4 people self-harm. Now in 2022, it is 1 out of every 3 people self-harm. And I just want to explain each form of self-harm. Picking at your skin is a form of self-harm. Cutting, burning, using drugs, starving yourself, purging, binging on food too much, refusal to take meds you need. The most common that I've seen is diabetics and not using their insulin because they're afraid they'll get fat from it or something like that. I don't really fully understand that. Any bulimics, feel free to comment down below and educate me, because I am not a doctor. I'm just a person who's been in the mental health system for such a long time that I learn about other people's conditions. Headbanging is another form of self-harm. Refusing to sleep or sleeping too much is a form of self-harm. And a lot of things could fall under the self-harm umbrella. But I'll read out the symptoms of self-injury disorder, which is what it is called. Alright, so I'm gonna read on my phone what the symptoms of self-injury is, or self-harm. Let me scroll to the symptoms because I want to talk about the symptoms and why I think it's a good idea to recognize it as its own mental illness rather than just a symptom. Okay. Alright, so let me read what leads to self-injury. Self-injury usually occurs when people face what seems like overwhelming or distressing feelings. It can also be an act of rebellion or rejection of parents' values and a way of individualizing oneself. Sufferers may feel that self-injury is a way of temporarily relieving intense feelings of pressure or anxiety, being means to control and manage pain, unlike the pain experienced through physical or sexual trauma. Providing a way to break free emotions, numbness, the self-anesthesia that allows someone to cut without feeling pain, asking for help in an indirect way or drawing attention to the need of help, attempting to affect others by manipulating them, trying to make them care, trying to make them feel guilty, or trying to make them go away. Self-injury may also be a reflection of a person's self-hatred. Some self-injurers are punishing themselves for having feelings that they were usually not allowed to express as children. They may be punishing themselves for somehow being bad and undeserving. These feelings as an outgrowth of abuse and a belief that the abuse is deserved. Although self-inflicted injury may result in life-threatening damage, it is not considered to be suicidal behavior. I like how they very clearly clarified that's not always like suicidal behavior, you know? That some people do this to cope. What are the symptoms of self-injury? Frequent cuts and burns that cannot be explained, self-punching or scratching, needle sticking, head banging, eye pressing, finger or arm biting, pulling out one's hair, picking at one's skin. Warning signs of self-injury is wearing of pants, long sleeves in warm weather, the appearance of lighters, razors, or sharp objects that we would not expect among a person's belongings, low self-esteem, difficulty handling feelings, relationship problems, poor functioning at work, school, or home. And here is how self-injury is diagnosed. If an individual shows signs of self-injury, a mental health professional with self-injury expertise should be consulted. That person will be able to make an evaluation, and recommend a course of treatment. Self-injury can be a symptom of psychiatric illnesses, including personality disorders, particularly borderline personality disorder, substance use disorders, bipolar disorder, major depression, anxiety disorder. Particularly, it's more common in people with OCD, is from what this article says. Schizophrenia. So there are like 8 different types of therapies that are like effective, which is psychotherapy, dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, family therapy, hypnosis and other self-relaxation techniques, medications. That's not a type of therapy, but that is like effective group therapy, post-traumatic stress therapies, and yeah, that's all of it. And I am so, so glad that it is now recognized as like an illness, because I've been dealing with this shit ever since I was like 12. Like, I started cutting at like 12 years old. Believe it or not, 12 or 13. I don't remember exactly. Somewhere around there. Sorry, I'm trying to plug in my headphones. Oh, my freaking camera almost fell. But yeah, I'm really, really glad that this is now recognized as a psychiatric illness. And I'm glad that they acknowledge that, yes, not all people who self-harm do it for attention. And the very few that do usually have really, really, really bad life circumstances that leads them to basically use self-harm as a way for a cry for help. Which I've had a friend who had like a really severe case of like BPD. It was like so bad to where she was like drinking and like self-harming and all that shit. And it was pretty bad, and she even had to go to the hospital multiple times because she cut so deep. She was one of the first people I met that actually had the same addiction as me. The only thing I don't really like is the fact that they don't acknowledge the fact that this can be addictive. That this can take over a person's life, ruin their life even. And they only talk about physical consequences, but none of the mental consequences that comes with self-harm. For me, the consequences I'll have to deal with for the rest of my life is basically having the urge constantly, having intrusive thoughts about it constantly, having people stare at me because of my scars constantly, people not trusting me, being addicted to it. It's really horrible. Like, I don't recommend anybody to self-harm because self-harm is really, really addictive. And anybody that I've known that did self-harm, I would always tell them, like, dude, you need to stop, because if you don't stop and you continue doing it, you will become addicted. I wish that I knew that when I was 12 years old. If I could go back in time and like tell my 12-year-old self, like, hey, like something, I would say, put that razor down. If you cut one time, you'll become addicted. You will end up having a addiction because of this. Please put that razor down. You know. One now very free people self-harm, but I've never really met anybody who self-harmed except for that one particular friend who was a online friend that I had from ages 12 to like to 14. When I was 14, I had to stop talking to her because shit happened and we became really bad for each other. So I was like, we're not good for each other. We need to stop talking to each other. So yeah. The reason why it's so addictive is not only because of the adrenaline, wow, I cannot talk properly, but also because of the endorphins it releases when you hurt yourself. And what's the weirdest thing about self-harm is that it doesn't hurt when you do it. It really doesn't hurt at all. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like your brain just turns off the physical pain. I don't know how else to explain it, but before it even happens, my brain's like, okay, time to turn off the physical pain receptors or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of like, they described it perfectly. It's kind of like being on anesthesia. Like, you don't remember very much when you do it, and you don't feel any pain, but afterwards you know what happened. but you don't really have much recollection of doing it, if that makes sense. But, yeah. My name is Star, and I'm really glad I found out that now this is considered its own disorder, and I'm really happy about that. And I'll see you guys next time.